Hello and welcome to the second part of our presentation program here at the TKH Vision booth at the Vision show in Stuttgart 2024. Today, on the last day of the show, Dr. Chris Yates will give us an outlook on the strategical trends that will impact the machine vision market in the future. He is the president of the European Machine Vision Association, and it's really a great honor to have you here with us on the booth. So thank you very much for your support and welcome.
Thank you, Natalie. Great to be here. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the Vision Show so far. And here's a little highlight for the mid-afternoon on the last day. As Natalie said, my name is Chris Yates. I'm the current president of the European Machine Vision Association and also managing partner at Vision Ventures. And today I want to talk a little bit about the topic of the machine vision market, its current status, as well as some of those trends that should affect the coming period. I wanted to start maybe by giving a brief overview of the European Machine Vision Association. The EMVA is the leading trade association for vision in Europe. We have some 170 members and growing. The association is owned by the members, and each member has an equal say in the direction of the association. We host 3 global machine vision standards, and we organize multiple events throughout each year, really aim to connect our members to opportunities. I wanted to start today by outlining the very basic concept of machine vision in the generic sense, shown when outlined in these 3 steps. Firstly, we capture an image, and this is critical, this is vision. And then we apply some algorithm or processing to this in order to extract information from this raw data. And it's worth remembering that this transition from data to information is the fundamental value creation event in a machine vision application. Once we have the information, we can then pass it to where it is useful, whether this is a human, a machine, or a robot. And machine vision in its scope. On the left here, I'm outlining the basic scope of machine vision in a broad, simplified value chain. At the lower end, we have the components, the FPGAs, the image sensors, the LEDs that are combined into generic products such as cameras, frame grabbers, illumination systems at the middle level, which are then combined into often application-specific system solutions, like the 2 glass inspection machines shown at the top. And machine vision is widely recognized as a strategic growth market. The chart here on the right is showing the estimated global size of the market since 2005. And you can see here a defined trend of increasing growth year on year, together with even through the period of the global financial crisis in 2008, 2009, and the more recent COVID pandemic. And the other point I'd note here is the growth is accelerating. If we break this into 9-year periods, 2005 to 2013, we're talking 6.5% growth. Thereon around about 8-9% growth, and projected to be 11 above double-digit growth in the future. But if you want a rough estimate or a broad measure of things, the global machine vision market is some 13-14 billion euros in size and grows on average around 8% per year. And with this slide, I wanted to comment on one aspect of what's powered the growth of this over these years in 3 charts. On the left, you're showing the average price of a typical industrial camera over the past 20 years, dropping from some 3,000 euros to now 300 euros or lower, a 10 times reduction. And in the middle, we're talking about the increase in compute that we have available. This is essentially a depiction of Moore's law over the last 40 years, showing a 10 million times increase in transistor density and therefore compute power that we have. And finally, on the far right, at the same time, the cost of this compute is dramatically reduced, dropping some 1.5 billion times. The short summary is now we have more performance, more imaging capability, more processing at lower cost than ever. And this has been a tremendous enabler of the growth of the market. I want to talk now a little bit about the status of the market today. So as we walk around the trade show floor, many of us will be having discussions about recent weak trading conditions in 23-24. The chart here shows the quarterly revenue figures for 6 publicly listed companies that has a strong focus on vision or a sole focus on vision. All of them are rebased to 2018, so you can see a direct comparison. And here you can see very much a trend that was slightly weakening in 2019 before a very strong uptick at the beginning and early stages of the COVID pandemic, particularly in increases in pharma inspection, drug inspection, and also e-commerce automation. As we've come out of the COVID pandemic, there has been oversupply or over inventories in the industry, which has led to a reduction in orders. And you can see the dips coming in 2023 and beyond. And maybe as we move into 2024, a feeling of muted but initial signs of a positive outlook going forward. I want to touch on one more aspect of the market before I move to some trends in the market, and this is the topic of mergers and acquisitions. So the chart here is showing the number of acquisition transactions of pure play vision companies since 2001 on a yearly basis. And you can see a very clear trend of increased transaction count as we go forward, of course with a slight dip at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. Overall, this represents some 275 pure play vision companies in transactions. They represent some 13 billion of cumulative revenue, 13 billion of cumulative purchase price paid, with 5 billion of revenue being generated by them. The final point I wanted to make is on the right-hand side is the proportion of financial buyers participating in these transactions. And you can see, having split it out into 10-year periods, the increase in the proportion of purely strategic financial investors participating in these transactions is growing up to 30% from 2020. And this is a real indication of a maturing, but still very strategically attractive market to invest into. With the next section of this talk, I want to talk about 3 broad trends across each of those 3 steps I outlined at the beginning of capturing, processing, and delivering information. And the first one here is non-visible or wider imaging modes. And one of the tremendous advantages we have in the machine vision business is we have so many imaging modes that we can apply to specific problems. On the top, I'm showing effectively all of the imaging modes across the electromagnetic spectrum, ranging from X-ray, ultraviolet, visible, shortwave, medium, longwave, IR, all the way up to terahertz and radar imaging, all of which can be used to solve problems. On the bottom, I'm showing on the left-hand side what I would describe as non-intensity modes. So these would be 3D area scan, 3D profile, acoustic imaging. And on the right are 3 modes that can, in principle, be applied to any of the top modes and actually give an insight into material properties, so multispectral, hyperspectral, and polarization. Many of you will have been around the floor today and seen many manufacturers providing these types of modes in their systems. And just to highlight a couple of companies and their exposure to this, Sony, as we know, is the largest provider of industrial image sensors. And you can see these are the modes that they're covering in their silicon. Very strong concentration in the central electromagnetic region, as well as 3D, event, and polarization imaging. One step up the value chain, like many large established manufacturers, this example is coming from Teledyne, covering a very wide range of the electromagnetic spectrum, as well as strong performance in the 3D. And the same is true for many companies there, and we will see more of this to provide full portfolios to cover all application problems. With this slide, though, I wanted to pose a counterpoint. Whilst we have these modes available, it's also the case that the cost of the sensors or the cameras can increase as we move away from the visible region. The graph on the right is showing some indicative price increases as you move into different regions. Certainly a shortwave IR sensor can cost 3, 4, 5 times that of a visible sensor, and X-ray sensors can be orders of magnitude more expensive. But I also wanted to highlight one point here with the picture of the infrared spectrum here. By moving outside of the visible, we do allow ourselves a window on detecting material properties. For example, in this infrared spectrum, part of those peaks represent the water content and therefore allow measurements of actual water content, water density within systems. Very powerful approaches to using imaging to solve novel applications. The next trend is in the central part, and this is the processing of information. And here I wanted to talk about a topic that's very widely visible, artificial intelligence. And in the 4 steps here, I'm outlining the conceptual approach to machine learning or artificial intelligence. So our starting point is representative data for the application that we're trying to solve. We then create a model, which is intended to transform that data to the useful information. And then we train the model using the representative data. Once we've trained the model, we're then comfortable to do the final step and deploy it into a production system to provide inferences in real time. Basic concept of AI. And it's worth comparing this to what's sometimes called traditional machine vision or rule-based machine vision. This is shown on the bottom. And again, our starting point is representative data for the application we're trying to solve. But instead of training a model, we create specific processing rules. So for example, detect a line edge, find another line parallel to it, take the tangent and measure the distance between them before then deploying this model. And I finally wanted to highlight here, one of the reasons that AI is of very strong interest and has a lot of significant power and opportunity is it can conceptually automate all of those last 3 steps for the end user. And this provides the path to potentially very easy to use systems for non-expert users, typically that would be used to create processing rules. So before moving on to some of the benefits of AI, I wanted to highlight a response in the market. This is showing some 35 startup companies incorporated over the last 10 years across the globe, all actively raising venture capital finance in order to develop vision AI products. And I think many of these have been acquired, those I think carrying the little orange star, but collectively these companies have raised somewhere close to 500 million in euro in investment, with a typical deal transaction size of around 50 million. And there would be easy to have multiple more companies up there. Turning to AI applications, AI is a very powerful tool and certainly performs very well in applications that are very relevant to many end users. Certainly AI works extremely well in terms of classifying particular objects or parts and makes it very easy to add new parts or new defects. Another area where it is extremely relevant for industry is on the so-called anomaly detection, where the intent is for the AI to detect defects that have never been seen before, which is very relevant in the industrial markets. Another area where AI performs extremely well is bringing out information from lower quality images, where rule-based systems may not work. So think high noise, low quality, faint images. But at the same time, there are constraints on AI. And here on the left, I'm outlining some of the potential constraints. And on the right, I'm showing some of the response of the companies within the market. The first one is we aren't starting from a zero baseline. Machine vision has proved extremely valuable and very effective using traditional methods for many years. For example, if we look to that inspection of a vial application that I showed at the very beginning of this presentation, we would be expecting this to have 99% accuracy in a production system using traditional machine vision. And this means there's a high bar for some AI systems to provide extra value to customers. The response, of course, from the market is to use hybrid algorithms, to use combinations, and this is a very sensible technical approach to using the best combination of tools to achieve the result that provides value to end customers. The second point I think is an important one, is data scarcity. Many of our applications are in manufacturing processes, and these are specifically designed to avoid variation, which means those training sets and the number of defects can be actually very sparse. And this leads to a problem in terms of training robust model. Two interesting responses from the market. Synthetic data. I think this is a trend of creating training models purely synthetically in order to train models. We see many companies doing, and I think will increase in the future. And also we see many companies targeting domain-specific applications with their AI solutions. The final point is actually going to become more important, and this is explainability. And understanding why an AI model made this decision that it did. This is a topic of ongoing research, ongoing activity and innovation, and will certainly continue for the future and become increasingly important, essentially removing the black box nature of some AI models. The final topic I want to talk about is at that final stage of delivery of the information. And I'm just going to show one slide here and this talk about 5G. Now, 5G offers essentially 4 key benefits. It offers increased bandwidth, reduced latency, increased reliability, and scalability. And each of these are relevant for machine vision. Certainly, we see in many of our camera systems a trend towards increasing resolutions, higher speed, which results in greater data bandwidths. And the ability to transfer this wirelessly will be a benefit for machine vision. But when we talk about industrial manufacturing, it's probably the two in the middle that are of more critical importance. Latency, and particularly defined latency, allows the possibility to think about control architectures in automation systems. And robustness is critical when we're talking about active running of systems in industry. To close this point, I wanted to highlight at the bottom an interesting use case that actually comes from China. This was presented in 2022 and is a cooperation between Huawei, Haier, and China Mobile Communications, all very large companies. And the concept is that they actually set up an entire factory based on machine vision communicating through 5G for all of the inspection tasks. And the important point here is the architecture. Here, the cameras are essentially dumb edge devices. All of the data is transferred to a central server architecture, which is then running the applications to extract that information. And whether or not this will be adopted widely is certainly a direction that's being pushed within different regions and can have significant impact to the way machine vision could work in the future. So to wrap up this presentation, I'll make a short summary. 2024, 2025, the economic outlook, certainly I think muted, potentially frugal, but with indications of a positive outlook to the future. One point very important, the underlying drivers of machine vision remain extremely strong. There is more opportunity that we can cater for, and we live in a strategic, valuable industry. There is going to be and will be ongoing consolidation and more acquisitions across the industry, but this is also balanced by the number of smaller, innovative companies addressing many of the new applications, further powering a growth market. On the AI, reducing complexity is important. AI will continue to generate value and be used in applications. And there's potentially going to be strong impact from 5G as we move forward. I hope this has covered a few topics in a short call and has been of interest. Thank you very much again to Natalie and TKH for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the European Machine Vision Association. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks.